Welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 1st of March, 2023, and this is the Cluster API project meeting. Cluster API is a sub-project of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidance, which basically means if you'd like to talk, please raise your hand and I will call on you. And otherwise, in general, please treat each other as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly, please be kind to each other. So at the beginning of every meeting, we'd like to take a little time to welcome our new attendees. So if this is your first time at the meeting, or maybe your first time in front of the community, please feel free to unmute and introduce yourself or raise your hand. I will go quiet for a few seconds here and give people a chance.
Hi all, if I might, do you hear me well? Yeah, so thank you very much. My name is Mohammed. I'm a consulting engineer at SUSE, and I'm here today, my first time in this meeting. Happy to join you all and have to know you. My idea today was to present you a new project. A new provider for CAPI called for RKE2. So it's a control plane and bootstrap provider for RKE2, and I will be demoing its first alpha version. Thank you very much.
Awesome. That sounds exciting. Welcome aboard, Mohammed.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Musa. So this is not the first time, maybe second time I've joined, because I was busy on other meetings. So today I've just started from the first as the meeting starts. But yeah, I've recently started looking Cluster API because I'm building another tool which automate a lot of deployments on the clusters using their APIs. But I'm very keen to now introduce that Cluster API because I'm very impressed with the way it's been built, and just started looking at. So looking forward to work with the community. And hopefully I can contribute as well, because I'm just really new to the Golang, but yeah, I would love to contribute as well in the open source. So that's something I'm just trying to go through the code as well, as much as I can. So that's basically it. So thank you.
Awesome. That sounds amazing, Musa. Welcome aboard. And there's a lot of great resources in our Slack channel. So if you're new and trying to understand the code or looking for advice, I would definitely recommend reaching out in the Cluster API Slack channel. It's a great resource.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will do it. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan. I'm a software engineer over at AWS. I'm actually working on a project called Carpenter, which some of y'all may have heard of. So there's starting to be a little bit more of an overlap to what we're doing and what CAPI is doing. So I'm interested in getting involved in the community, see what y'all are doing, and yeah, start to be more involved in the meetings.
Cool. Welcome aboard, Jonathan. Yeah, Carpenter is a really exciting project. So yeah, I'd be curious to see how things are going. All right, I am not seeing any other hands go up, so give folks another second here if anyone would like to say hi. Okay, we'll move on to the next part of the meeting. So next, we usually go through our open proposal readouts. I'm not sure that we have any at this time. There are no open proposals. I don't know, is there anyone here who'd like to speak about the stale proposals? All right, I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll keep moving. So we'll get into our discussion topics here. It looks like Killian, you've got the first one about release binaries build issues. So please take it away.
Sure, thanks, Mike. Yeah, could you open that issue? This is a quick one. It's really just PSA. So we did a release yesterday, and we had a bunch of build issues on more recent versions of CAPI. So the 1.4 beta that we cut and the 1.3 release. This was down to a patch in the Git version used in the Golang builder. So we use the Golang image to build CAPI for releases, but we don't use it in other places. So we didn't catch this issue just until right at release. So this is the fix. It's just PSA because I guess some providers might have similar build processes, might run into the same issue next week or whenever. So yeah, just watch out for it. So this affects at least that image v1 19.5 and up. But it's from a base Debian image, so this might pop up in other places as well for people. So yeah, just be aware of it, I guess. And yeah, the error and stuff is there in case you run into it.
Awesome. Great service announcement. So providers, be aware of this if you see it. Okay, so Mohammed, you're up next with the demo of the RKE2 control plane bootstrap provider. So I'm guessing we probably need to make you host so that you can share your screen as well.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, let me see if I can just figure it out here. It's grabbing the wrong one. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen and you should be able to take over.
Okay, let me try then. Okay, this is sharing. Let me try. Okay. Are you all able to see my screen?
I can see it. Go right ahead, Mohammed.
Cool, excellent. So yeah, basically I'm presenting today a new provider for CAPI. The idea behind it is that it will help using CAPI to deploy RKE2 clusters. If you're not aware what RKE2 is a Kubernetes distribution created originally by Rancher. The idea behind it is that it's a data center oriented Kubernetes cluster type distribution that is based on K3s, so containerd, that is FIPS compliance and has and is security oriented. Okay, so the idea behind that provider is that it has to, like, this will make it possible to deploy RKE2 types of clusters using CAPI. So we developed for a short while a first version, and we had since a couple of days our first alpha version, which is a pre-release, so it's not yet production ready, but it should work for test environments in an acceptable way. So you can take a look here at the I cannot actually show exactly the link. Oh, okay. So yeah, github.com, Rancher Sandbox, and Cluster API Provider RKE2, and there you will find the release with the release notes and the assets for cluster CTL. So the idea today is that I would show you very fast how that interfaces relatively easily with cluster CTL. So here I'm on my WSL machine, and I'm going to show you the content of the /cluster API. You see I have the config file for cluster CTL. So that's what I'm gonna take a look at here, cluster CTL. And you can see I have here two.
Mohammed, if I could interrupt, we're only seeing your browser right now. We're not seeing the terminal window.
Yeah, so I will have to share in a different way. I'm sorry. Where is
the no
full
worries,
screen?
No worries. This is kind of like our stock and trade around here.
Yeah, so I might actually need to share individual windows. So that's what I'm gonna do here. So let's do it. I didn't find a way to share the whole screen. Do you see my terminal window now?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, so you see that I'm in .cluster-api cluster.yaml, and I have here 4 configurations. The first 2 are for our provider here, so the RKE2 provider. You see that the RKE2 provider is actually 2 providers. It's the control plane one and the bootstrap one. So to deploy the control plane and the worker parts of the cluster. And then you will see that I override the Docker provider and the AWS provider. And that's because basically there are some small issues related to how these infrastructure providers work. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but basically I needed to override that with my own forks. Okay, so if I use that, do a simple cluster CTL init with bootstrap set to RKE2, control plane set to RKE2, and infrastructure set to Docker, that would install for me the, I don't know what I did here, but
Maybe Bootstrap needs
No
to be
big deal
RKE2
missing a 2
as
there.
well.
yeah, okay. So anyway, it's yeah, so that's what you would use. It would work hopefully correctly, and then basically you can get you can deploy a cluster using our templates. We have a couple of them here. Let me again share that other window. Where is it? And you share again here. Okay, if I go to the code, you will see we have a samples folder with some templates for Docker, for VMware and AWS. We hopefully will be increasing the number of, you know, with testing with different infrastructure providers. But yeah, so you would use the templates that are here, for example, for Docker, this one, the online mode, you will have here like, you know, the namespace, the cluster, the Docker cluster, the RKE2 control plane, Docker machine template, and again, the Docker machine template for the workers and the RKE2 config template for the Bootstrap config. Yeah, so that's how it should look like. And at the end, if you take a look at the machines that would be created thanks to such a configuration, you can deploy a cluster. Here in this case, it's based on CapD, but it works as well with AWS, etc. Things that I would like to mention right now is that so there are some smaller issues with CapD infrastructure provider and AWS infrastructure providers. That's why we are using the forks, as I mentioned. These are two different, actually small issues. The CapD one is related to the fact that the infrastructure provider relies on a health check for the load balancer container that is standard HTTP, but expects anonymous query of the health check endpoint for the API server, okay, on the different nodes. The problem is that with RKE2, we have deactivated anonymous anonymous querying of the health check endpoint, so that does not work. So we need to basically create an issue on the CapD provider upstream and probably contribute that to do a pull request to also accept other types of health checks. Yeah, that's what I meant. So that's for the CapD one. For the Kappa one, or the AWS one, it has more to do with security groups. Basically, RKE2 relies on a custom port to do node registration for new nodes. And the security groups are not configurable, unfortunately, in the Kappa provider. So we basically need to add that port either manually, which is not very interesting, or fork the AWS provider to add that port right now. However, we already have a, so which window am I sharing right now? The browser? Okay.
Yeah, the browser.
Yeah, so give me just a second. Can I get out of this? Yeah, okay. So let me check. We have an issue on. I can't see my. Sorry about that. I cannot access my.
Yeah, no worries. You got a little bit of time here, so you can find it.
Okay, very nice. Thank you very much. So we should have here. Yeah, let's see. Let me create a new window. That's it. Okay, cluster API provider AWS, and that should be it. I'm opening this issue here, ability to customize security group rules on the cluster API provider AWS. Basically, yeah, it asks to be able to add security rules to the different security groups that are generated automatically, just to give the possibility to configure additional bootstrap providers such as RKE2, for example. So this is being worked on, but it's not yet done. So in the meantime, if you would like to use this provider, please go ahead and use our own fork for that. This is also documented in our README page for now. Yeah, so my message here after this is that we would like to contribute this provider to the upstream SIGs in a I would say a near future, if that's possible. So in order to achieve that, we will need to stabilize it, to test it, and I'm here to basically call for help and contributions. So if someone is interested in RKE2, please go ahead and test this new provider and give us feedback, create issues. Also, if you would like to create pull requests, you're more than welcome to. And yeah, and after this call, I will probably be advertising that in the Slack channels and stuff like that.
Very cool. Thank you, Mohammed. Does anybody have questions or comments about this? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up, but I did put a link to the repo in the notes.
Thank you.
Yeah, folks, check it out. And it's always exciting to see new providers coming for Cluster API.
Yeah, I'm happy to have had the opportunity to talk to you about this provider. And yeah, let's keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, Mohammed.
Thank you.
All right, I will take the screen share back over here. And let's go back to our meeting minutes. All righty. So next, we got Joe up, starting requesting reviewers, add area tags. So please, Joe, go ahead.
Hey, everybody. So one of the things that we've run into on the comms release team is not knowing which area is being changed for which PR. We could go through and get, read the PR and try to make our best guess as to kind of what area is changing for the release notes. But what we're kind of wanting to push for is that reviewers, what we're asking for is that reviewers would try to, with their best effort, add that area of change at the time of landing the PR. Ultimately, I think the goal is going to be later to automate this and hopefully ask our reviewer, the people cutting the PR to do this for us, but I don't think we're in that stage yet. So I think if we can ask whoever does PRs moving forward to add areas, and they don't have to be perfect, right? It just has to be somewhat, so we're not guessing at the time of cutting notes, would be a huge help.
Yeah, that sounds good. Do we have you said it doesn't have to be like super accurate, but do we have a list or anything that people should use to refer? No. Okay.
I am not aware of one right now, so I can tell you what we currently do. And if somebody has a better way to do this, please let me know. We keep a list of the old PR or the old releases open and make best guesses as to what the name should be. So I think the idea is to somewhat enumerate the list somewhere. I don't know if that's going to be officially in a doc or where we should put that, but that is something we've talked about.
Yeah, that's having it documented somewhere would be great. And And I see Cecile's linking something here in chat, and there's little kind of approvals from chat. I'm wondering too, and this is something that I see that, like, I know the cluster autoscaler does this, or the autoscaler repo does this. Would we ever want to put automation in that would look at what a patch is touching and then automatically add labels, or did that discussion already happen, I guess?
I think that's an amazing idea. I don't think we've officially discussed any of that. The first steps is to be the lazy developer and ask others to do the work for me. And then we'll put the automation in at some point. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I think that's an amazing idea.
Yeah, I just know, like, in the oh, sorry, Cecile, you've got your hand up. Please go ahead.
Oh yeah, no worries. I was just gonna say, like, I know that right now CAPI has these like emojis to help like triage or categorize. And I think our release notes automation automatically categorizes based on those emojis as prefix. But in other repos in Kubernetes and Kubernetes SIGs, what I've seen a lot is using the labels. And we already have those labels available in CAPI already because we're part of Kubernetes SIGs. So we have those like kind/labels. So kind feature, kind bug, etc., which can give like a predetermined list to choose from, which might be a bit easier than telling people like just choose an area and then you kind of have to interpret which one's the same as which one and what are the categories. Just a suggestion.
No, yeah, I think that's a great idea. So do you mind real quick going to the release notes? I know the next topic will be on that as well, but yeah, that'd be perfect. So for anybody not aware, kind of what we're looking for here, right, is if you scroll down a little bit, you see we have like cluster class : developer experience : So we're kind of just lifting this from kind of the existing structure of release notes. If we want to change that, I think that's totally acceptable. And we can talk about that too. So are you saying, Cecile, to like add those as labels as well, maybe?
Yeah, so it really has to match whatever automation we're using to make the release notes. So right now, CAPI uses the emojis in the automation that it uses, but I know that release notes tool, or there's a release notes tool in Kubernetes, which uses the kind labels. So I guess it doesn't make sense to use the kind labels unless we're also using the automation that generates the notes. Otherwise it'd be pretty manual, but yeah.
Alrighty.
Sorry, if I can
sorry, go ahead.
add one more thing. Sorry, yeah. The other thing I'll add is the one advantage of labels over emojis is that you can you can filter. So you can look for all open PRs with the kind label bug, for example. That's very convenient.
Yeah, +1, super convenient. Stefan, you're up next.
Yep. I just want to clarify that we're basically talking about two different dimensions, right? So I mean, one thing is, do we do the icon thing for bug feature, whatever, or are we start using those labels, which essentially probably decides are we using the kind release note tool that we have which comes from, I don't know, controller tools, QBuild or somewhere, or are we using upstream Kubernetes? And even independent of that dimension, we still have the topic about in which area of our code base does this PR belong, or in which areas. I think we have a lot of PRs which are probably touching like, I guess, 3 to 10 if you do some cross-cutting stuff. But that might actually be easier with labels. I mean, if you touch like 4 different parts of the code base and you just add 4 labels, that's easier than trying to add 4 prefixes to a PR title.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, that sounds amazing. And knowing that there's an areas label, I did not realize that any of this existed. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I think like some combination of these things seems like it would really work. Yuvraj, did your topic get covered there, I guess?
Yeah, I was just about to mention that regarding the second dimension that we are looking at, we have an areas label, which would be more appropriate in this case because it could help specify, okay, this PR touches cluster class area or runtime SDK area and so on. But yeah, it's covered in chat and people brought it up. So yeah. Okay,
cool. I'm kind of curious how this kind cluster API vSphere snuck in here. You know, kind of separate from the other ones. Yeah. Okay, does anyone else have comments about this? Yeah, Stefan, go ahead.
Yeah, while we're talking about automation, I don't know who knows, but essentially you can configure in Pro that when files in certain folders are touched, Pro automatically adds a label. So you can say, hey, if you touch code in, I don't know, /machine pool, add area /machine pool.
Yeah, that's
works
what I was
only,
thinking.
Yeah, the limitation is that only works if, I guess, the folder structure matches your areas, right? So if you have like a copy core folder and it's just everything in there, that doesn't work that well, obviously. But I guess at least some basic data should work, like, I don't know, test folder and below, or some other special things which are actually separated on the folder level.
Right. That was my impression, is like the Kubernetes main repo is doing this as well. Like it's adding these labels based on where, where the files are landing that are changing it. So it's, this one's in the test directory. And I think that's the kind of automation we're talking about here, where if you touch something in one directory, we could have it automatically add some of these labels like that. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, you just add it to ONO files essentially, just like approvers and reviews.
I like it. How do we feel about adding those labels manually for now, like the area labels that Killian suggested? Is that an okay thing until we get the Prow style automation or something in there?
Cecile, please.
Yeah, I think it's fine to like crawl before we walk, but one thing that might make it a bit easier is adding them to the PR template so people can just uncomment the appropriate label so that they don't have to remember which one is which.
Cool.
I think that's a tremendous suggestion. It's so tremendous, I'm just going to record it here. Okay, so yeah, I think Joe, the short answer seems like, yeah, for now we just kind of walk, we kind of crawl along and just put them on there manually, and it'll probably be a little chaotic for the next couple months, but this community will get on top of it quickly. So yeah.
One additional comment.
Yeah, please.
I think we should also audit our current area labels. I think most of them are okay, but I frequently struggle to put some sort of matching label to something on an issue, and there's just no area label which fits. So I think it definitely makes sense to start an issue discussion, whatever, using, I would say, start with previous areas, categories that we had on release notes, and then listing the labels that we have, and then figuring out what the right ones are and updating areas accordingly or something like that. Just because it's probably a bit messy how that works today. Yeah, for sure. And I will disagree with you about where to start, and I will agree with Cecile in the chat that let's remove the vSphere one. That sounds reasonable.
No, it's just funny, it's just kind of standing out there. Okay, so any other comments or questions about adding the area tag? Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands or any other comments going on. So who would like to speak from the release team?
I can do that.
Cool, thanks.
So yesterday we cut the 2 patch releases for 1.2 and 1.3, the 1.2.11 and the 1.3.4, and also the first beta tag for the 1.4 release. Thanks everyone on the release team for making this happen, and also thanks to Killian for helping with pushing the tags to make the release happen. I just wanted to announce that, and the 1.4 beta tag has some of the big changes that are going into the 1.4 release with regards to KCP remediation and variable discovery and in-place propagation. So if provider folks want to jump on it and basically have a look and see, we now have a beta tag that people can start taking a look at. The next just FYI, the next beta is planned for next Tuesday, and the first RC is planned for the Tuesday after that.
Oh, that 1.4 looks huge. That's totally awesome. Congrats to the release team. Like, well done on some hard work there. Does anybody have questions or comments about any of these releases? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up, but I will echo this comment from chat. You know, the release team is setting a high bar for all future release teams. So yeah, I totally agree with that. All right, so that brings us to the end of our regular discussion topics. So we'll move on to the provider updates now. And Richard's got something for CapG. So please, Richard.
Yeah, just a quick one. We are going to do a new release of CapG next week, 1.3, and this is going to have the first support for GKE in there. But post that, it's going to have a minimal set of functionality initially. So post that, we're looking for people to help out, fill out the functionality in GKE, both in terms of the API, but also in the testing and stuff like that to make it rock solid, because it will be experimental initially. So yeah, expect that next week.
Cool. Sounds awesome. Good to see that coming along. And I guess you got the next one too with the alternative communications patterns feature group. So please.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, so we had a lightly attended feature group meeting, which of 2 people, but it was still quite good. So we are going to look at a number of options that are listed there, like Zenith, FRP, and API server network proxy. That being the Kubernetes, the last one being the Kubernetes project. So really, it's just a shout out that if anyone's had any experience with API server network proxy in Kubernetes, or it's also called connectivity byte is another name for it, can you please reach out? It'd be good just to learn from your experiences.
Okay, great. Yeah. So just to echo that, if we got experts out there who know about the API server network proxy, yeah, please reach out, get involved. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our meeting agenda. I'll give a little time here if people have an ad hoc topic or something. I also see Alberto is ready to volunteer. So maybe a connection there for you in Slack, Richard. Okay, yeah. Anything else people want to comment? All right, I'm not seeing any hands going up or people on miking. So thanks everybody, and I guess we'll see you next week.